Hello and welcome to part 2 of PneumaticCraft Repressurized. I'll be going over the things I find handy and that I'll be using on most of the items that I'm going to show you. This is the first item, this liquid hopper. I would suggest making like 3 of these guys because they can be used as storage and you can go do something else as these start trickling into the objects that you made. How do you make the liquid hopper? Liquid hopper is made with a hopper in the middle and then glass around it like a normal hopper. For all the machines here you need heat, and heat is provided by the vortex tube. The vortex tube gives heat to all the items that I'm going to show you now. One of the most essential items you can get actually for making everything else. How you make it: 3 compressed iron ingot at the bottom, 1 at the top right, 1 at the top left, 2 gold bars left and right, and 2 pressurized tube in the middle. Then you get a vortex tube. If you place it down you see red and blue. The red side has a big black spot and the blue side, that's the cold side, has a gray spot that's easily distinguishable. If we go to the next part, this is the refinery. The refinery refines oil and needs heat to function. That's why we have the vortex tube. How to make it? Well, you see 3 compressed iron ingots at the top, 3 compressed iron ingots at the bottom, glass to the right, glass to the left, and a diamond in the middle. So as you can see here, there are 3 configurations that work: 2, 3, and 4 stack. The 4 stack is more efficient than the 3 stack, and the 3 stack is more efficient than the 2 stack. For the 2 stack you lose 40% if you place in 1 bucket. For the 3 stack you lose 30% if you place in 1 bucket, and the 4 stack will not lose any liquid. It will distribute it to all of the above. These liquids are, well, basically separated in 4 stages, the heaviest to the lightest. I will go from the heaviest to the lightest in order. The heaviest one is diesel, then you get kerosene, then you get fuel, and then you get LPG. If you place in 1 bucket of oil, you get from this 4 stack 200 of diesel, 300 of kerosene, 300 of fuel, and 200 of LPG. The rest of the details will I give you a little bit later, but right now this is sufficient. For the next one, if you have your refined produce from the oil, you go to pneumatic processing plant. This processing plant needs heat and air pressure to work, so a little bit more complicated. How do you make it? Well, as you can see here, 3 compressed iron ingots to the right, compressed iron ingot to the top left, and compressed iron ingot to the bottom left. 2 glass, 1 at the bottom and top, redstone in the middle, and a pressure tube to the left. How does it work? You can place any liquid that comes out of the refinery and place it in here. It will take a lesser form of oil and place it in the left side, and will refine it to a higher form of oil and place it to the right. For example, if you place in diesel, the heaviest one, inside this processing plant, it will become kerosene, 1 higher in the tier. In the process you will lose 20% of the refining process. So if 100 millibuckets gets refined, it will go into the other tank for 80 millibuckets. That's 20% loss. When you want to make liquid plastic, you have to place LPG to the left and a piece of coal in the spot above, and it will transfer. 100 millibuckets of LPG with a piece of coal will transfer to be 1000 millibuckets of liquid plastic. Well, up next is a plastic mixer. It's the last step to making plastic sheets. How do you make it? Well, you make it with 3 compressed iron on the bottom, 1 top left, 1 top right, and then a couple glass blocks, 1 to the right, 1 to the left, and 1 at the top. Once you have all these items, you need the oil to be refined. This can be hard to find if you have the standalone mod of this one. I have multiple mods in the mod pack, and therefore I have pools on the surface. In this mod pack you have pools under the ground, so you need the seismic sensor. The seismic sensor will find oil for you underground. How does it work? Well, first we need to make one. How do we make one? 2 glass blocks to the right, 2 glass blocks to the left, a coal piece at the bottom, a redstone repeater in the middle, and a redstone torch at the top for an antenna that you make a seismic sensor. When you get the seismic sensor, you just have to right click on the floor and you'll see the sensor has found no oil. When you see oil and you click on it, it will also not find anything. But if you're above it and you click on it, it will register the block and then count down, and it will find oil 1 meter below. If you go a little higher, it says 2 and then 3. So it says how far it's down below and then how much bucket of oil there is. It will say 0 because this is creative and I made it by hand, so that's that. Alright, let's talk about insulation and loss of spreading. Once you make the refinery, just like that, you're gonna find there's gonna be a couple trouble problems here. It's gonna say a couple blocks out of a couple blocks are exposed to the air and not insulated. If you want to change that, you can take whatever block you have and place it around. If you go look now, instead of 8, you're gonna see 6. So 2 sides are covered. The second problem is gonna be heat. You need to heat this refinery up, and how you can heat it is with a couple things. The heat can come from a vortex tube. That's the fastest method. Then you can have a lava bucket. That's a little slower, and then you have the torches. The torches are basically what I use to be still able to get to the refinery, just like this setup. You have a big open space so you can go to it. Once you have completely secured the surroundings with isolation, don't forget to do the top as well, because that's counted as isolation as well. Insulation, my apologies. Once this block is completely insulated, as you can see here, all the sides are insulated. You can right click and check if it is insulated or not. Everything is insulated, and that's good to know. One thing in this mod pack that is making it really clear is that you have heat transfer and heat mass. If you just have these two, you will see that the heat will generally slow but still will rise. If you have multiple blocks connected to it that will also transfer heat, just like this plastic mixer in the pneumatic processing plant, you will see that these are not completely insulated and won't be working as good and will actually be drawing heat from this pipe. Everything wants to be the same, but these two aren't really insulated. Whilst you have things that you want to heat up, there's also things that you want to cool down. There are a couple things, just like this flux compressor. Once you make it, it will become hotter and hotter, and if it becomes to a certain degree, the efficiency from the machine will go down. So you want to make a heatsink. Well, how do you make a heatsink? Heatsink do you make like this: iron bars from the middle row filled up, and 2 compressed iron ingots, one to the bottom left, one to the bottom right, and a gold ingot in between. That's how you get a heatsink. The heatsink, you can place it on any hot or cold surface, even at the sides of this refinery, but that will cause us an even bigger loss than a insulated block or open block, because the heatsink wants to pull away all the cold air or all the hot air. It will make it more drastic if I place one of these heatsinks to my refinery, that all the heat will go away from there. The refinery, this is the setup I use for my refinery most of the time. The place of the liquid hopper usually changes a little bit so I can access it more often and better. Most of the time I just place it here in a corner and I make sure that I can just enter it from the one side. So I place the liquid hopper on this side or the other side. This vortex tube, to make it hot enough for the entire time, I take 4 air compressors to heat up this vortex tube. For a vortex tube pressure rule of thumb, you have a couple of things that I found out. If you have a vortex tube with 4 compressors, you get 4.1 bar of pressure in the entire system. If you have a vortex tube with 3 air compressors, you get 3 bars of pressure in the entire system. And if you have 2, you get 2 bars of pressure in the entire system. I do not recommend going with 1 air compressor, because 1 air compressor is not strong enough and will actually not be fast enough, because you're gonna wait way too much. The last thing, be careful with 5. Every air compressor adds a little bit more than 1 bar. It's like 1.03 or 1.04. And if you add 4 in a row, it's gonna be 4.1 bar-ish. So if you add a 5th one, it might be that it's too big and sometimes it can explode. So be careful and mindful of that. Up next is the processing plant. The processing plant actually only needs 3 air compressors. That's good enough, that I found out. If you take a 4th one, it's just taking too much of your coal away. So if you want to conserve a little bit, 3 is more than enough. You have the vortex tube with the hot side to the processing plant, and then just a tube across all the way to give this one a little bit of pressure. How does this thing work? You have a 20% loss if you place in any liquid that you get out of your refinery. If you place in 100 millibuckets of diesel and you want to refine it to kerosene, it will become 80 millibuckets of kerosene and not the 100. So you have a 20% loss that goes all the way up from diesel to LPG. Once you have LPG and you want to make liquid plastic, LPG and a single piece of coal, you get 1,000 millibuckets of plastic. 1,000 millibuckets of plastic equals to literally 1 sheet of plastic. So don't be discouraged. That fills up pretty quickly, but you need a full bucket to make 1 sheet. Furthermore, if you want to make lubricant, this is also made in the processing plant. You're gonna need diesel on the left side, and instead of coal you need redstone. So if it's gonna be in here, you want to fill it up with diesel on the left side and a piece of redstone in the middle, and you get lubricant on the right side. Lubricant is made so you can make speed upgrades and all sorts of other small things. But that's how you make lubricant for the upcoming parts that you want to make. Next step is the plastic mixer. You put in the colors red, green and blue. As you see here, you need roses, then you can put it in a crafting bench, you get red dye. Then you take cactuses, put it in a crafting bench, you get green dye. And then you take lapis lazuli, that's for the blue dye, and then you stack these up. If you want to make plastic, you place in a bucket, right click it on the plastic mixer or right click it on top. Then you can look at it, fill it up slowly, and then as you can see here, there's 10,000 millibuckets, so that means 10 sheets of plastic. Depends on what you want, but you can click on whatever you want here in this item selection. If it's still small, click on this one. So now you have a red one, and there you have it. You can also click on black or green and all the others that are down here. But if you said to yourself, maybe I should have made this, you can place it back, it will heat up, it will get above the temperature that you have it, and it will give back the plastic amount. So we have 8 millibuckets in here. If I place the plastic back, it's gonna be 9. I do not get any of the pigments back, but that's for me okay. You get at least your liquid plastic back. That's all. Thank you for watching. Hope you have learned something, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.